You're listening to What It's Like with Luce, a podcast highlighting ordinary people doing extraordinary things. I'm your host Lucy Norris, and on today's episode, I'm chatting with an actress whose credentials include the likes of Grey's Anatomy, Criminal Minds, and most recently BBC's The Syndicate. As soon as she could talk, this week's guest loved to perform. Taking acting more seriously as she grew up, she sought out representation and began auditioning alongside her high school studies. Appearing in small commercials and TV bits whilst living in Florida, it was a move to LA after graduation that changed everything for the British-American actress. From booking her first gig in Hollywood to working during COVID-19, she chats to me about the journey, her hopes for the future, the less glamorous side of one of the world's most notorious industries, and the challenges she's faced along the way. Here's what it's like to be Liberty Hobbs. The best way to start and how I like to kind of kick everything off is, if you don't mind, going all the way back, just reflecting a bit about when you were growing up and where this initial interest in acting and performance came from.
Yeah. Well, for me, I guess I've always kind of had an interest in it. I think I kind of came out of the womb singing and dancing.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. I even remember being like 2 or 3 and having like a karaoke machine in my hand and, like a microphone and just singing. And then I was like, in dancing classes growing up, and then kind of, naturally progressed into theatre. And then when I was about 14, I think, I naturally transitioned into wanting to take like training for television and film. And so it's just something, I've always kind of had a passion for. I just was born with the passion.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've been lucky enough to be able to turn it into what I hope to be a successful career.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just always been with me ever since I was born, really.
Yeah, that's cool to hear. And you've certainly, done all right so far with the things that you've been appearing in terms of turning your passion into a career, which is really cool to hear. And so I suppose, you kind of had always realized you had this deep set interest in the sector and stuff like that. But in terms of taking it forward, I'm sure you had some people say to you, that will never happen for you, don't bother, and all that kind of thing. So can you talk me through maybe those stages when you were nearing the end of school and making, the decisions about where you wanted to take your life next in terms of going down that path?
Yeah. The industry is extremely difficult, as everyone can attest to, and the no's come way more than the yeses do, obviously. And even outside of the industry, there's people that have said no to me in a way of like, you can't do this. This is not attainable. This is not something you can, make a successful thing in your life. And I don't listen. I don't know if that's stupid of me. I don't know if that is just something like, whereas there's this inside voice where I just know that this is the only thing that would make me happy in my life. I don't know. But as I did high school in Florida, and I went to regular high school and I did theater and everything there. And then, I was auditioning through high school and everything like that. And, even my theater teacher in high school said to me, you can't do this. That has literally, I'm 24 now, and that still, I was probably 15 at the time, and that still sticks in my mind. And I think that kind of drives me still to prove like she's kind of like the representation of everybody who has said that I can't do this.
Yeah.
Because I can, and I am, and I will.
Yeah.
So, after I left school, I made a deal with my dad that, I would still get my degree, because that's, a smart thing to do. And he never was able to get his degree. So that's just something he felt that he wanted me to do. So I am still getting my bachelor's in communications. And, I'm still, just would focus on, getting to that next step, getting the agent, getting that next audition. And after I graduated, I got that degree, my first AA degree, and then moved to Los Angeles and just, started. And I was lucky enough to be able, before I moved, to have representation. So I was auditioning on the circuit before I came out here.
So can you take me back to those days in the industry, what it was like entering into the professional industry whilst you were still at school, and I suppose maybe like the challenges that came with that, or what the experience was just like for you?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was hard because obviously I was still really new. So every single thing that came my way, I was just learning it. Um, and I was in Florida at the time, so the industry is not the same over there. It's just the smaller things like the commercials, and there's the occasional TV thing. And I only was represented by a smaller agency out there, so it was just and that was great for me because it was just kind of like I felt like I was just taking it step by step. So each audition I was doing was just like the commercial auditions, the print things for the local like stores and things like that. So it was hard, because I felt like I was also coming up against my peers at school who were like questioning what I was doing and saying, "Oh, are you famous yet? You famous yet?" And it's like, no, it doesn't happen overnight. Each step that you take, and it's like I look back and that's like what 6, 7, probably longer than that years ago. And it's like, look how far I've come, and it is a journey. So it was difficult, juggling it all. But I'm so happy that I just followed through with what I wanted to do and didn't really listen to anybody.
Yeah,
'Cause,
and I think that's so inspirational. Like that's kind of, the whole point of all of these conversations is for people to just hear that again and again, to reinforce it, that despite
yeah,
everyone telling you, not everyone, but as you demonstrated there, people saying no, people trying to get in your way, and just entering into an industry that maybe the assumption there is that the odds are stacked against anyone trying to do it, and that you just
yeah,
kind of went, yeah, but I love it. So,
yeah,
let's go. And I
yeah.
love that. And so obviously then you moved to from Florida to LA, which I'm assuming was a pretty big step in your career, and just in life in general as well. We're the same age, so I can imagine,
Yeah.
how daunting it must have been as well. So what was that like, and what was the industry in LA like?
Yeah, you're right in saying it's daunting. I was actually just listening to a podcast that one of my castmates, Catherine, did. And she was talking about how, when she moved to London, it feels like, sometimes the big city can kind of close in on you. And that is literally the feeling that it can be like here sometimes. It's like you're in this massive city, and there's hundreds of thousands of people around you, but it's like closing in on you. And it can be, I'm going to use the same analogy she did, but it can be the best city sometimes when things are going great in your career, and it can be the worst place to be sometimes when things are not going great. And yeah, it was extremely daunting for me, but also extremely exciting. I felt like, this was kind of like my life beginning. Like this is it. This is what I've trained for. This is what, I've waited all this time for. This is where it happens, and this is where I need to be. And I was lucky enough that my dad works away all the time, so it's kind of just me and my mom, and at that time my dog. And so I was lucky enough that my mom moved with me at that time, and so I had her with me for the support, and thank God I did. Yeah, it was still daunting because it's changing your life again. But I kind of just jumped into it full swing, and I'm still here. I'm still here making each day
Yeah.
happen. And so yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, I can only imagine, even just from the stereotypes of LA and like the acting industry and all that kind of thing. I'm sure it was pretty crazy. Um, and so yeah, so you've been in things like Grey's Anatomy, which, that's, even just from a fan perspective, that must have been pretty cool. Criminal Minds, and then the Syndicate, that I believe is your most recent one that you've done with BBC. So talk me through, I suppose, all of those things in terms of, which came first, and what it was like stepping onto a big set like that for the first time.
Yeah, well, Criminal Minds was my first ever job in LA. I booked that, I think that was 2017. I'm not I could be wrong. I think it was 2017. And I didn't even have any lines in that. I had a line in the audition, and then when I got to set, they were like, nope, that line was just for the audition. You don't actually say it. And so I was like, oh, okay. And that was my first on set experience, and it was insane. I was just absorbing it all, taking it all in. I was like, okay, this, and that just like solidified everything for me, being on that set, because I didn't have any lines, because I didn't really have anything to do other than just stand there. I was like, okay, no, this is what I actually want to do. I was taking it all in, seeing everything happen, and it was incredible. And then people would say to me, oh, it took that much work just to get on TV and like not say anything. I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
And then I had the occasional little thing here and there, and then I was lucky enough to book Grey's Anatomy I think it was a couple years later, maybe a year later, and that was a reoccurring, and that was kind of like my first Hollywood experience, where you think that you're going to be on there for a while, and this is going to be one of those jobs where you're bringing in like some solid money for a while, and then 2 episodes later they tell you you're written out. And so it's like, but I'm so glad that happened, because it's like I learned early on how to deal with stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I learned that, okay, this is the industry, and it still didn't stop me from wanting to do it. But I had an incredible time. I mean, Ellen Pompeo is like, just to watch her work is unreal. the amount of scenes they put her in a day, with the amount of dialogue they put her in a day, and she just kills every single thing. But that it's like a oil machine. That set is just like so fast paced, and just to stand there for like a minute and just watch everybody do their thing was just like, oh my god, it's so cool. To see everyone do their thing, and it was so fun. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And then I was lucky enough then to book my first series regular with Kay Mellor on the Syndicate, and that was just probably one of the best experiences of my life, really. And for a while we weren't sure if we were going to be able to do it because of COVID and everything like that, but we did, and we were able to go to Monaco, which was unreal.
Yeah.
And the cast is unreal, crew was unreal. Yeah, it was. I'm so blessed that I was able to do that. And I just look back and think, okay, each step I've taken, from the first role of no lines, to be able now to be a series regular. So yeah, I'm blessed to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I think it's so interesting the point you brought up there, where people were like, oh, it took that long, to get on TV. And you're like, yeah, people really don't realize the amount of hard work that goes into your job, I think. And as you said, like, just to see the progression, because it hasn't been, loads of years. It's probably in the space of 4 years or something like that. I don't know your career timeline, but I'm just assuming. But yeah, like the progressions that you've made has been pretty rapid. So the other side of things that you kind of touched on there, the how fickle the industry can be in terms of just employment, but then also the criticism side of things, or like the comparison, all that kind of thing. I want to call it kind of the dark side of the acting industry. So I'd be curious to know how you deal with that, what your coping mechanisms are, and how you kind of keep picking yourself up when things don't go as planned.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of quiet times in the industry. You're sitting at home auditioning more than I say sitting at home auditioning because of COVID world, but you're out most of the time in the offices auditioning, more than you're actually on set working. And that can be probably the most difficult, is your brain's constantly like, okay, when am I going to get the next job? When am I going to get the next job? When am I going to be able to be on set again? And then also you face the criticism of people in the industry. Like for me, for example, being a plus size actress, I face the criticism of that all the time. And so I'm always going up for roles that are based on that, which is something that I'm trying to fight against. Because it's like, people have a lot more to them than just what they look like.
Yeah.
So characters shouldn't be written based on, oh, plus size girl, and that's their breakdown. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that is something that I fight against in the industry, and that's a lot of the backlash that I get is based on being a plus size actress in the industry. And you know, it's hard. I'm not going to lie and say that I'm so strong that it never gets to me, because it does. I think I would not be human if it didn't.
Yeah.
But you know, you have your moments, and then you take the time to work through it, and then you pick yourself up and you move forward, because inside of you there's just this, I don't know, it probably sounds corny saying, but there's a fire in you that, you know, you have to fight, and this is what you want to do. And you know, this is what I want to do as my career, but I also want to make some sort of change within the industry to be able to say, okay, you know, the plus size girl doesn't have to be the best friend or the funny one, or you know, the sidekick. She can be the lead girl, and the storyline doesn't have to be about her weight.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, that's something like every time that, you know, I get backlash, or someone says about my weight, or you know, there's a comment on social media because they've seen an episode of a show that I was in or something, and they're commenting, oh, that's the fat girl from Grey's Anatomy or something. Those get to me, but then I have to think, okay, well, hopefully within a few years I can change the mindset of people like that, and show, you know, that people like me will become leads, not just, you know, skinny people, you know. And so
Yeah.
that's what kind of gets me through it.
Yeah, I think that's really inspirational. And, you know, I always think with things like this, you kind of not, you don't forget, I don't want to say that, but like, just because we're in 21st century, 2021, and everything is so much more liberal and things like that, you almost assume that those kind of things wouldn't still be the case at all. Do you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
you kind of forget. And then I think it's so important to hear from people that, yeah, no, I'm still getting told this, or whatever it might be that you're being criticized for, that it still exists and change still needs to happen. I think it's
yeah,
really interesting to hear from you.
yeah, it is 100%. And you know, in Hollywood right now there's this whole big like diversity movement, and I think a lot of the time people forget that diversity is a lot more inclusive than we are saying it is.
Yeah.
Like people say that diversity is just about race and ethnicity and things, and it's not. It's about more than that. It's about, you know, people with disabilities, you know, people that have different shapes and sizes, and you know, there needs to be a lot more of that on television, not just making sure that each television show has someone of a certain race in it, so that they're, you know, making sure that they stay out of controversy. So
Yeah.
I think that's something that we need to make sure happens, you know, when we talk about diversity.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right, because I think, yeah, it's when people don't know enough about it, it's so easy to just box into this corner, include this because this is what people are talking about at the moment, and then we've ticked our box and move on, you know.
Yeah,
So yeah, no, I think that's really inspirational, kind of that's included in your vision, on top of, you know, you just for your own personal growth, wanting to make it as well. And so I suppose leading on from that, I know with COVID and everything, it must have been a pretty tricky year. I've even just in terms of being in the journalism side of things in the industry, it's been a very interesting time for all of us.
yeah.
But in terms of just living, but how do you see things kind of moving forward? Do you have new projects that are coming, or what do you expect the next few months to bring for you?
Well, COVID has definitely, you know, put a big stop to a lot of projects happening, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
Um, and, you know, nothing in the pipeline as of right now. I'm just kind of hoping that, um, you know, as we have these vaccinations and as we like know more about COVID, we can kind of figure out more how to work in the industry, I guess. You know, the Syndicate was able to do it, and we took day by day. But we were one of the only productions that did. And so hopefully, as more productions do it, we can figure out ways to continue doing it safely so that more auditions happen, more jobs happen. And so, nothing right now, just continue to audition, continue to keep going. Hopefully, that next job will happen soon. I think that's probably what the industry is. You never know when that next job's coming. So you just enjoy the one that you're doing now.
Yeah.
And and then hopefully the industry will start to open back up a lot more now that we have this vaccine, and we'll be able to get back to work.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, just
Yeah.
on that, I'm so curious to know what it was like filming with COVID.
Oh my gosh, it was stressful. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
Yeah, 'cause it was just like we were constantly getting tested. We would have temperature checks every day. I think we were getting tested like once a week, and I was always just scared, that it was going to be me that would come back as the positive one, because there was a lot of people that we had backups for, on the crew, like, and things like that. But the main cast members, we didn't have the backup. Like, it was just us, and so if we came down, if we were the ones that had it, like, oh no, that was it. And so it was scary and stressful, but we had the best, COVID coordinator, who was just constantly, he would go around with hand sanitizer all the time, and make sure we were doing what we needed to do. And the main cast members, we all lived in the same apartments, and we just didn't go anywhere. We just, like, if we needed to hang out with each other, or we wanted to hang out with each other, that's just what we did. We didn't go anywhere because we were just so scared that we were going to be the ones to catch it. We didn't want COVID to be part of the show.
Yeah.
Kay didn't want to write COVID into the show, I don't think. So it wasn't like we were wearing masks, while filming or anything like that. We had them obviously when we were off set.
Yeah, I think that's so good that they didn't write COVID in, because I feel like there is now a risk, and this is me going on a tangent, but I just feel like it could happen that in the next year, every single TV program is either about
Yeah.
COVID or everyone living in COVID, and we'll have just come out of doing it ourselves to then have to
Yeah.
watch it all over again. It would just be like, oh my God, please stop.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm wondering the same thing, if a lot of shows will have COVID in it. I bet they will.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy Kate. I'm happy Kate didn't do that. I think we need a bit of, escapism from
Exactly.
the real world.
Yeah, I think that's the great thing about TV and the entertainment industry, is that it does just take you away for a minute. So yeah, hopefully that won't be the case anyway. But so just kind of to wrap everything up, I'm so curious to know your thoughts on this, because stereotypically, I feel like you're in an industry that is filled with success, and that's kind of a buzzword, and being in such big programs like Grey's Anatomy and all that kind of thing, looking from the outside in, I would say extremely successful. You've kind of made it. But what's your take on that word, and what is the personal definition you have for the word success?
Wow, I've never been asked that before. That's a big question. Well, thank you for saying that, by the way. That's really nice of you to say. But I don't consider myself successful yet. I think for me, I don't think I'll ever really consider myself successful, because I feel like there's always the next thing. There's always the next goal. One day I'd love to be able to go into producing, directing, that side of things. So I don't think that even if I were to book, the next biggest movie ever, that would be a success for me, because then there's the next step after that. Okay, so then what can I direct? What can I write? What can I produce? So there's always something within the industry that, I can do. So I don't think that I'll consider myself ever 100% successful, because I'll never get a chance to do everything.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
it's like, I think it's a thing of balancing ideas of success with satisfaction.
Yeah, that's a great way of saying it.
Yeah, like what? Because I asked this question to everyone, so I've learned a lot along the way. I feel about what everyone has said is, and one person said, which kind of stuck to me, and I think it's exactly what you're touching on now, is that it's more about the journey. That's like,
Hmm.
it's the journey. You can never attain success. Success isn't a thing. It's the journey that you take to achieve all of your goals and things like that. They put it much more
Yeah,
eloquently than me, but if you get what I'm trying to say.
yeah. No,
Yeah,
exactly. It's about every step that I'll take along the way, and like the excitement that I'll feel from each step, and then looking back and thinking where I am then versus where I'll be now.
yeah.
And then that'll probably give me satisfaction, I guess, versus the feeling of success.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
think that it's so interesting to hear from you, just working in one of those industries, that people, the entertainment industry fascinates me. It just like a personal interest. And because
Yeah.
I think it's so easy for people to look at everything, first of all, and say that it's so easy, which I think, you've demonstrated throughout the course of this conversation, the amount of hard work that goes in. And then secondly, just that whole idea around success in Hollywood and all that kind of thing. But then I'm going to ask you one more question and I'm going to let you go,
Yeah.
because I know
No, don't worry.
I'm asking you very deep questions at 9 a.m. in the morning. You're probably like, leave me alone. um,
Don't worry.
but if I put your 10-year-old self in front of you today, having been through everything you've been through, both career-wise and also just in your personal life, because I know you've moved around a lot as well, which must have been pretty cool. What's the biggest piece of advice you would give that 10-year-old self moving forward?
Well, I'd tell her a lot of things. but, um, but mainly, I just say keep going and don't listen to what everyone says. Keep listening to that little fire inside of you. Trust the gut that you have, because you will get there. It's going to be a long road, and there's going to be times where you want to give up, and there's going to be times where you think, oh my God, should I just do something else? But just keep going, because you will get the feeling that you want, that happy knowing where you want to be feeling. It will come. It's going to take a while to get there, but it makes it better that it takes a while to get there.
Yeah, I love that. And
Yeah.
I think that's so true. There's a million sayings about that. I'm gonna butcher it now, but it's like anything worth having takes time, or one of those nice little sayings about it, but it's so
Yeah.
so true. Patience is so key. And yeah, I mean, you're doing great things. As I said, it seems like a very exciting time for you. So I really
Oh,
appreciate
thank you.
you letting me pick your brain for a bit. It's been so
Oh,
nice chatting.
oh, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening, and as always, please rate, share, and leave a comment if you like what you hear. And don't forget to follow @WhatIt'sLikePod on Instagram and Facebook. To find out more about Liberty and her work, visit the links provided in the show notes. I'll be back on Thursday with more inspiring stories, but for now, this has been What It's Like with Luce.